What's up guys, it's Pliskin here and welcome back to the What Would They Use series. Today we're going to be talking about everybody's favorite game and arguably everybody's favorite snake. What weapons should Naked Snake have taken with him into Operation Snake Eater to make the mission overall easier? Now, as per usual, we're going to go by more so the rules of reality rather than the borderline science fiction of the Metal Gear Solid series. So keeping reality in mind as much as we can, what guns would give you the best odds of going through this operation and coming back alive? Firstly, we need to talk about the things we're going to be considering, the things that are going to become obstacles to our guns and the things that we're going to need said guns for. So we got sand, we got mud, we got water. We actually have some sub-zero temperatures at the top of the mountains and when you first get to Groznygrad, as it is snowing when you first get there. We have dense jungle. We have plateau mountaintops with large expanses, long distances. We have tight indoor environments where CQB will come into play. Your enemies might not have armor, but they are going to be carrying large ballistic shields. You have giant armored tanks like the Shagohod. We are going to be talking about how to deal with that in a realistic manner. We have to worry about snipers. We gotta worry about guys with squad automatic weapons, laying down suppressive fire on you. We gotta worry about helicopters. And we gotta worry about extreme dark, as there are multiple sections in this game where you're either in a dim environment or an almost pitch black environment with no light. Now, the one factor that's really in our favor here is Eva. We have support from Eva to hold weapons for us when we need them. For example, if you don't pick up the SVD or the RPG-7 throughout the game, she will give them to you towards the end, similarly to how she also gives you C3. So if we have a weapon that we will need later, but don't need in that very moment, if we see Eva, we have the option to give the weapon to her and have her just hold it and transport it for us when we need it.
See, that's what he's talking about. Spread your ass open, soldier.
Now let's talk about the brainstorming, so you guys understand the logic I went through when talking about the loadouts here. Suppressed SMGs were normally my go-to, especially for a time when body armor wasn't too common. However, suppressed SMGs just were not a thing in the 60s and came around more so in the 1970s. So SMGs like the Sten, the Sterling, and the Uzi, even if we bring them along, won't be able to be feasibly suppressed as we would be able to do them just 10 years from when this game takes place. One thing we need to take into account is the fact that there's no 9x19mm in Groznygrad, in Granny Gorky, or in any of the areas in the game. We can find 45 and we can find 9x18mm in guns like the Makarov. However, there's no 9mm, so most mainline SMGs aren't really applicable because you'd run out of ammo. The MK22 we see in game is actually one of the first attempts to suppress a pistol by somewhat close to modern standards. But again, here's the issue, and the reason why we're definitely writing this off is because there are no trank darts like you see in the game here. The MK22 actually used regular 9mm, which again means that you're not going to find the ammo around. Also, it's not going to be anywhere near as quiet as it is in the game, so it's not really worth bringing with us. So in terms of what sidearms we could actually bring with us that would be feasible, we'd have to look more so at things like the 1911. The MAC-10 in 45 ACP was a thing at this point, although the suppressor still wasn't around. If we go over to 9x18mm, we of course have the Makarov. Again, suppressors aren't really there yet. Its suppressed variant that's like legendary for being quiet isn't really a thing yet. We have the Stechkin APS machine pistol. We also have the Scorpion in 32 ACP, which is in the running. But I'm not going to go into what pistol we're going to choose yet because I feel like there's just so much more to go over and more brainstorming so you guys understand where I'm coming from. But for now, just know that like the sidearm and SMG role isn't really that much of a thing. Like our understanding of how those work are still applied very differently at this point in history. SMGs are still seen almost like trench sweepers, and pistols are not going to be feasibly suppressed at all. Before I go into talking about like my ideas and my brainstorming with the long arms, I want to talk about how the M63 or LMGs in general are not going to be taken seriously for this mission. They're awesome, they rip things apart, they're powerful, they have a high rate of fire. In the game, the M63 is an ultimate beast. However, it's going to be way too heavy, and the fact that LMGs and squad automatic weapons in general rely on you A, either having a support team, or B, being incredibly stationary, just means that it's not going to be applicable for the one-man, constantly moving around, guerrilla style like ambushes type of gameplay or setup or experience that you're going to be having on this mission here. Your survival will be dictated on how well you survive in the wilderness, how well you can use the wilderness to conceal yourself, and how well you can get out of a certain area when the enemy knows you're there. And if you have an LMG with you, you're going to be at a disadvantage. Now, you'll have noticed so far that I brought up the idea of ammo and the availability of it. But before I start talking about certain long arms that would be a good idea in this situation with that in mind, I just want to say that if ammo wasn't a concern and you could find any ammo type around, for this point in history, I think the best long arm and gun I'd bring, if I could only take one gun with me, would be the H&K G3 with some kind of 1 to 4 times mid-range optic attached. Attach a flashlight by any means necessary, even duct tape, and I think you'd be good for this mission. You need a powerful tool to tear through the GRU. The G3 has pretty good power and penetration. You need something to counter snipe or ambush sentries from a safe distance. The G3 can do. You need something to lay down suppressing fire and ward off advancing assault teams. With a bipod, the G3 could play this role. The only reason why I'm not choosing the G3 is the fact that 308 or 7.62 by 51mm NATO is nowhere to be seen. So while this gun would totally fuck, the fact that you might run out of ammo incredibly fast is definitely an issue. But if 308 or 7.62 by 51 was an option here, just know that that would be the best gun to take with you. Now that the clearly best choice isn't an option, what do we bring? I feel a lot of the feasible contenders are already in the game. The sawed down Ithaca is compact, powerful, and reliable. It would tough out the environments that you have to go up against. It would be effective against the GRU and the wildlife, but the limited range that wouldn't cover the necessary sniping sections and slower reload kind of hold this gun back. So while the big shell would be a perfect area for a shotgun because the majority of it is in closed doors, there's just too many open areas that make a shotgun as like your 1 or 2 main arms just not really applicable. So we're going to write it off, even though it is a brilliant, reliable gun. The AK-47 in-game is good, however I would lean towards an AKM since those were available. In fact, it's kind of weird that in 1964, they aren't using a gun that had already been mass-produced to a point where it was overshadowing the original AK-47. The gun is reliable, the 7.62 by 39 is powerful and plentiful, the 30-round magazine gives you a healthy supply of ammunition, the iron sights suck, and there are no practical mounting options at this point in history for like an optic or something like that. So while you could manage the C3 sniping section on the bridge and shoot at distances if you get really good with this, I wouldn't bet your life on it because the sights really do suck. That is the one thing that tends to hold the AK down. So this brings us to the M16 variant we see in the game. It's light, it has really nice iron sights that double as a carrying handle, and it's accurate. Surprisingly, the 5.56 by 45mm is plentiful, so that's not an issue. So this lightweight, accurate, ammo-plentiful weapon should be perfect, right? Wrong. While an M16 with some optic attached to it would be passable in the second half of the game, it would be a subpar choice in the early game. Why? Water. The direct impingement system doesn't mix with water. and firing an AR-15 pattern rifle immediately after submerging it will most likely result in the gun exploding in your face. So let's protect Snake's right eye as long as we can here. So now that we talked about the potential contenders and talked about ammo availability, what would be the perfect gun if we didn't have to worry about that, and some of the realities with sidearms and SMGs, let's start talking about what we would actually bring in here. I usually go for 3 guns in these loadout videos because I like the idea of covering the extremes with niche tools. There is no squad here to support you. At best you have a partner, but at the end of the day, you are operating solo. However, in Snake Eater, it's difficult to get these extreme niches because they don't really exist yet. Well, a modern Spec Ops gun, like we picture it in our heads, or modern tools that are extremely niche and really good at being quiet, for example, like the MP5 SD, don't really exist here, so it's not an option. So I kind of have to go with a more generalized approach. That being said, I spent a lot of time and effort, and I think I figured out the best loadout to give you and Snake the best chances of survival. So for your sidearm, I'm gonna go with the Stechkin APS. I know a lot of you guys might not like this because it's a machine pistol, but please hear me out. First off, ammo is everywhere. Second, you can use this thing like a regular semi-auto pistol. Third, its holster doubles as its stock, so carrying this versatile package will never be impractical. It holds 20 rounds, more than the 1911 and Makarov combined. And if you're crawling through a vent, a ditch, or a cave, having an option for an emergency full auto package that's still maneuverable is pretty great and could save your life in those close quarters environments. So because of the options, the availability, and the capacity, I have to go with the Stechkin. For your main arm, I of course have to go with an AKM-S with a taped on flashlight and some taped together mags. Now I know the underfolding stock is uncomfortable. I know the sights suck. And I know 7.62x39 is hard to handle in full auto. But the folded stock will make it easier to carry, so if you're carrying 3 guns at a time, it won't be very clunky and unbearable. It'll work throughout the entire mission, water, dust, whatever. You might have to worry about mud, but the mud sections are far more sparse than those with water. And the taped together magazines will not only make it easier to carry more ammo than you would with, taped together M16 magazines that only hold 20 rounds. Here you get 30 rounds, and it's fairly easy to tape them together, store them, lock them into your gun. Like, you can carry these however you want, really. And you still have that healthy 30 rounds. And it's just overall the best versatile package for the time and ammo constraints. Now, for your final and third gun, I'm gonna say a SVD. The SVD is said to be one of the first DMRs, with its versatility for mid to long range combat, its compromise of fire rate and accuracy, and similar ergonomics to the AK, I'd say it actually earns this title. This is the gun I'd suggest leaving with Eva for sections like Granny Gorky or the Groznygrad infiltration. But for the mountains, jungles, swamps, a long-range ambush tool that keeps you a safe distance from the enemy is going to be essential for your survival. Yeah, your AK is a great assault rifle, and yeah, the Stechkin's going to be good for close range, but the reality is you don't want to be getting into these firefights with these guys. But if they're using AKs, and they're like 300 meters off, and you have an SVD, the likelihood of them hitting you is close to none, especially with those shitty iron sights. But you, with your reliable DMR, powerful cartridge, and a nice optic, are going to have a serious advantage there. So if you're ever in situations where you actually need to shoot your enemies and you can't just sneak through the grass, the sand, or whatever, this is going to be the gun you're going to be relying on. But yeah, I can't stress this enough. Realistically, you don't want to be in mid to close range firefights. You want to be somewhere where you have control of what's happening on the battlefield. And the SVD will give you that power. Now in terms of just some extra things or non-gun type weapons, we have C3. If 4 C3 can destroy the hangar, 16 blocks will surely fuck up the Shagohod. Have Eva hold them for you until you need them. Then of course you have your knives, one for survival, cutting traps, healing yourself, chopping fruit off trees, whatever, and then have one for CQC. Again, when you are in those close quarter environments, you don't want to be in a firefight. So if you can take out a guy by stabbing him in the neck, that is the only realistic, quiet way to dispatch an enemy. I've had people bring up, oh yeah, but blood's gonna get everywhere and it's gonna be really messy. I'm not saying you use this like you would in Metal Gear, where you shoot a guy in the head and then you wait around to see the patterns of all the other guards and then you shoot them in the head. No. This knife is for those extreme situations where I need to get through this door now before more guys come here. You stab the guy in the neck and then you're through the door, speeding through your mission. You don't stick around. But you need something for those emergency situations where you don't need to struggle with a guy, you can just kill him really fast and it's quiet. And for that, a knife is going to be your best bet. So one knife for survival, one knife for stealth. And yeah, those are the weapons that I think would give you the best chance of surviving Operation Snake Eater. I don't feel the need for an RPG or something like that because both the Shagohod, choppers, and all these things have tons of anti-air turrets around them. You could go through this entire game without using the RPG, and I guarantee that you can go through this entire operation in real life without using the RPG. Hell, if you're smart, the only things you're going to use is your SVD and your knife. And of course the C3 for sabotage. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think I shouldn't have kept the ammo rule? Do you disagree with something that I've said? Let me know down in the comments below. This has been Pliskin, over and out.
This is Solid Snake. Hey, subscribe to Pliskin Boy. God damn it.
You heard him.